Are you tired of working so hard and not getting the results that you want in your life or your career or your business? Well, I used to feel that way about my life and my business too. And I knew clearly what I wanted. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I spent a lot of energy every day focused on where I wanted to be. But it just seemed like no matter how much I worked and no matter how hard I tried, I never seemed to be able to get there. And grinding in that cycle for way too long left me feeling weary and frustrated and plain exhausted. And it was in those moments, it's in those moments where we feel stuck and we feel tired that we tend to start doubting things and we start questioning everything. And so I wondered things like, do I just want too much? Am I just greedy and ungrateful? What's really wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Am I just not supposed to be that successful? Why does everybody else's hard work and effort seem to be paying off, but mine isn't? And I felt like I was being punished for that. And, and I questioned that. And then self-pity would set in for a little while. But then I'd have to make the decision and use restraint not to act on that self-pity and not to go down that rabbit hole or to give in to my surmounting doubt. But instead, I realized one day that I stepped back from the grind for just a little bit, and I just stopped pushing so hard. And I tuned into God's natural flow of things, and I was determined to seek perspective because I knew that there was something that I needed to see that was going to change things for me. And it was a very scary time to do that because I felt like it was all going to come out from underneath me, and all my plates were going to, come crashing down that I was trying to spin around me when I pulled back, and that I was going to fail. And I was also terrified that I was never going to feel motivated again once I did stop and after taking a little bit of a break. Yet I trusted that was the next step that I needed because I knew that what I had been doing was just not working for me at this point. So, and I really didn't have a choice because I didn't have the energy to continue in the same way either. And it took a little bit of time. It took a little bit of soul searching in that time. It was a process, and I asked for God's wisdom, but it was in that space of stepping back from trying to force things to happen that clarity came for me. And I realized in that time that none of the things that I was actually afraid of that were going to happen, afraid of happening, were actually true at all. And that there was one adjustment that I needed to make in a certain pattern of thinking and behavior that was going to empower me to be more effective and more successful in all areas of my life and my work. And it was this. I needed to shift my focus from being focused on results, from being results and outcome oriented, to being focused on the process. And here's what I mean by that. According to Nick Saban, the head football coach at the University of Alabama, I think we all know Nick Saban, the process is really what you have to do day in and day out to be successful. So instead of asking his players to focus on winning the next big championship, because that would be incredibly overwhelming, or the next big game, Coach Saban simply asked his players to focus on what the next action is. What is the next drill? What's the next play? What's the next touchdown? And how do we get there? What do we have to do consistently in order to create that for ourselves? And to Coach Saban, it's not the outcome that's important. It's the process. So why is making this shift so important? How does that change things so much? Well, there are two reasons. First, because it simplifies things for us and it takes the pressure off of us. And it's so much more effective and motivating when we're process focused, because when we're committed to the process, we always win. Because we're seeing those little daily improvements, the little wins, instead of when we're outcome focused, we never feel like that what we're doing is enough. And we look around at everybody else and we see that it's not happening fast enough and we need to be doing more. But so further, the second thing is if we're focused on a certain outcome and that outcome and those results don't actually happen the way that we think they should or in the timing that we think they should, then we're going to feel perpetually disappointed and frustrated. So being process oriented enables us to enjoy our progress, the fruits of our labor, much more than being tied to this particular result or this outcome, or being happy only when we have this particular result or outcome. Rather, there's happiness in enjoying the fruit of our labor in our process. And things in life may not actually turn out the way that we want them to. We always have that picture of the way we think things should be. And oftentimes it doesn't look exactly like that. But the outcome may be better. It may be a better outcome than we could have imagined. But the process may look a little bit different, and we have to enjoy that process. So then, if we dedicate ourselves to the process, we win those inner battles. And if we predicate our success and our happiness on a certain outcome, it only leads to frustration and disappointment. And so I've learned instead to let my happiness be dependent on how much I've worked to reach my goal and who I've become in my journey of becoming, who I've become on the way to my goal. And in order to be process oriented, we have to do two things. First of all, we've got to design and commit to a system for change, an effective system, an efficient process where positive outcomes are the inevitable outcome. And secondly, we've got to be committed to the process of taking consistent action on a daily basis. We've got to do things every day, discipline things to be consistent and to make us to stay in our process. And we've got to ask ourselves, what can I do daily that will guarantee extraordinary results for me? And whatever it is, it has to be an action that we can sustain over time. And there is one caveat to this, that you have to constantly and never-endingly improve the process. Just get better a little bit every day. Change something for the better every day. A tiny little step. So let's talk about how to make the shift to be process-oriented instead of results-oriented. The first thing is that we've got to eliminate the clutter in our lives. We got to eliminate the clutter in our minds. We have to eliminate the clutter in our schedule. And we have to eliminate the clutter in our lives, in our space. Secondly, we've got to focus on what we can control and not on what we can't control. Thirdly, we've got to decide what kind of person we're going to have to have what we want. And then we need to ask ourselves, what am I going to have to do consistently in order to become that person to have what I want? And commit to that process that'll help us achieve that. And then consistently refine that process along the way. So I want you to save yourself from getting frustrated and impatient with your results, because that eventually leads you to complaining, feeling exhausted, and maybe even giving up because it often feels like it's not worth it. And begin to make the shift in your approach and focus on the process. Begin to enjoy the journey to creating what it is that you want. And the outcome's going to be inevitably a positive one if you commit to the process and you take consistent action. And if you're ready for more powerful breakthrough in your life and your work, and you're ready to start living process-oriented, I'd love to help you get there. You can email me at ConnieJ@arisecounselingandcoaching.com, and I'd love to coach you to soar in a life and a business that you love.